What's up? My name's Corey. I'm not used to talking to a camera, so I'm going to try and make this as painless for myself as possible. Recently, I've been inspired to kind of use this YouTube channel a little bit more. I've had thousands of ideas that I've written down, but I've never gotten around to because I don't know anything about creating videos, and I'm trying to make, or my thought process is, oh, it needs to be perfect. I need this, I need that, I need this. Reality is, I don't, and I gotta take my own advice and just get it done. So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Cory Bergeron. I'm a producer, I'm an engineer, I'm a mixer. On top of that, I also play in a band called Safe to Say. We're a rock band. We've been very fortunate to put out lots of music and be able to kind of see the world through touring. And then the last thing I do is I manage a studio here in Ottawa called Pebble Studios. It's kind of like my home base. I'm really thankful to the owners there. They kind of let me use it as my playground, which is great. So right now we're in my basement, and I'm going to do a quick little studio tour. Studio is kind of a loose word, but I'm going to do a little tour of my basement. I have it set up as kind of like a mixing room. I do a little bit of overdubbing, but it's kind of me adding to whatever I think the track needs. I do all of my mixing down here, all of it. I've been doing it for just over a year now. Before that, I was doing it all at Pebble Studios, but I found it was just easier to have an environment like this. So again, I don't do any tracking down here. This is kind of my post-production room, and I'm going to switch over to kind of holding the camera and talking into the camera microphone, so I'm sorry if the audio gets real crappy after this, but yeah, I'm going to show you around my little basement setup. Okay, so I just tried to go handheld, and I realized that I'm really bad at communicating what is in my head, and I like to jump around a lot, so I think it would be better if I took this approach to it. We'll see. All right, so let's talk about the three most important things in this basement studio. So number one, the computer. I use a Hackintosh. I know that's very controversial. People will chew you apart online and blah, 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 blah. I've used several PCs that have Pro Tools, and every single computer has its kind of quirks and bugs. And I've used several Macs that have Pro Tools, and the Macs seem to be more stable. When buying a Macintosh, as you know, it's expensive, and I work on very dense sessions with a lot of plugins. So I was trying to find a solution. I wanted to kind of create my own thing. I found somebody that used the same hardware, the same software, and it built a Hackintosh. And someone like me that does this professionally, this is how they make all of their income, right? So I need something reliable, and I need something rock solid. So I reached out to him, asked how much, or picked his brain, and I got him to build me one. Honestly, so far, so good. It's been about like 8 months now, maybe less, that I've had the computer, and I'll bring it with me anywhere. If I know I'm going to be at a studio for a long time, I'll bring my computer with me because it's so powerful. It's got all of my tools, so I can quickly create and just like on the fly. If I know I want to use something, use it, commit it, do whatever I got to do. So I love my Hackintosh. Number one, I think one of the most important pieces that someone that's doing any sort of production work, like the most important piece is having a rock solid computer, because the amount of time you will save on just having everything be stable and you know, everything loading quickly, everything operating the way it should be, is so valuable. So valuable. And there's nothing more stressful than having a computer that just keeps screwing up on you. So yeah, Hackintosh is my computer. I might throw the specs up here. It rocks. Number two would be your monitors. I think that I'm going to be bold here and say this is a priority list. Number one, good computer. Number two, monitors. So what I use for my monitoring system are these Atom A7Xs. You can kind of, still not used to this. You can kind of see them over here. I bought these speakers without listening to them years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago at this point. I had seen some engineers and producers use these, and they all did awesome work. Similar genres to what I like to work on, a lot of guitar heavy stuff. And I found the speakers I was using before had really crappy mids, or really inaccurate mids. And when you have multiple speakers, you'd be on your NS10s and your mids are just like totally in your face, and then you switch to these other speakers and they're totally scooped. You would literally have to balance in between. You would listen and go, that's too much, that's too little. Now we're in the right spot. It was really just annoying and more work than it had to be. So I bought these without listening to them. They came in, turned them on, I was like, oh, they sound good. And I got used to them. And I think that's one of the most important things. A lot of people like to pull their hair out talking about like, oh, should I get these ones or those ones? Doesn't really matter. I would say buy whatever, as long as they sound pretty decent, you will get used to them and you will know how they work. Now, the one thing, when I switched over to working in the basement here, is that I missed using a sub. When I was doing all my mixing at Pebble Studios, I had a sub there. I had a nice 15-inch sub. Anyone that's recorded with me knows that that sub is powerful. I wanted a sub. I didn't want to buy a 15-inch sub. I didn't want to spend $800 on a sub. I just wanted something that worked. So my roommate Joey, who lives upstairs and kind of has like, we call it Studio B, he's got his own setup up there. He had this $50 speaker setup, like this home speaker setup just for your computer. It had a little, I think, 8-inch sub and then 2 tops. And every time I'd listen to stuff, if I was like, hey, Joey, check out this mix, what do you think? Anytime I listened to stuff, I really liked the way it sounded. So I went out and I bought the same, bought the same speaker system for $50 from Best Buy. And what I did is I took the top, I opened them up, and I cut the cables to the tweeters so that nothing comes out of that. The only thing that operates is the sub, and I run that parallel with my speakers. And I know it's not what you're told to do in school, but it works. And so I guess number 3 would be your interface. I used to use an Apollo Twin here at home. I still have it. The only thing is when I built my Hackintosh, or when I got my Hackintosh built, it wasn't compatible with Thunderbolt. We had the intention of doing that. Basically, we couldn't get our hands on a motherboard that had a Thunderbolt input. Nerdy technical stuff, couldn't get Thunderbolt to work. So in the meantime, I've been using this Scarlett 2i2. It's really, really inexpensive, and people probably bash it on the net or whatever. I've been using this professionally, working on like label projects, doing mixes. I've recorded stuff. I've recorded entire label projects through this crappy little 2-input thing, and it sounds good to me. So I have no issues with it. I would love to upgrade to something with more physical preamps and inputs, because it is kind of annoying only having 2. I like to kind of create a setup where everything's plug in and play at all times. But other than that, it totally works. That's, I guess, the 3 biggest parts. On top of all that, I'm a guitar player, so I have too many guitars. And yeah, so let's jump into guitars. This is one of my favorite guitars. So Fender, Mexican Telly, swapped out the pickup. I've toured with this a lot. I've beat the crap out of it. I've drawn all over it. Swapped the pickguard out. I love this thing. I don't record with it very often, but it's one of my favorite guitars. This is a Reverend Charger 290, I believe, 2 P90s. It's a great guitar. If you don't know anything about Reverends, I recommend checking it out. They all come with this low contour knob, which is really, really great for recording. It really kind of changes how the guitar interacts with the amp. The reason why I'm showing you this guitar is because it's, 1, it tracks great and I like to use it in the studio, but 2, when I was playing my first show in London, England, overseas, this is the only guitar I brought with me. And as you can see, there's a bunch of screws in the headstock because after the show, I dropped it on the ground and I broke the headstock. I didn't realize I broke the headstock until the following day during sound check. So thankfully, our tour manager at the time had a friend that was attending the show. He said he would take it home, no promises, see if he can put it back together. And he managed to get it functioning. It still works now, and it's been over a year. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of got like a cool story to it. There is absolutely nothing worse than having a bass player come in with a bass guitar that isn't set up. So I like to keep my own basses on me at all times. This is just a Mexican jazz bass that I've painted on because I'm a child, and I got myself a Fender P bass. This is a long story. This isn't really mine. It's my friend Jacob's, but he's never getting it back. Now, with all that being said, the only guitar that really, really matters is this guy. This is a Fender Mexican Telecaster stock, but what it has is this Evertune bridge. If you don't know anything about Evertune bridges, basically they just keep your guitar in tune. Highly recommend having an Evertune guitar if you record a lot of guitars. So when I am working at home, I don't like to record live amps. It's as simple as that. It's no fun. Trust me, it is absolutely no fun having a guitar amp in the room when someone else is playing it or when you're playing it and you're trying to listen to something. So I like to go direct in, and I like to use this Kemper back here. If you don't know anything about the Kemper profile amplifier, it does this crazy stuff. It's got a great rig exchange software that you can download, and basically you can share different amp models with people all over the world. So if you're looking for a really particular type of amp, you can search it up, and it sounds half decent. yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I use it all the time. I keep it permanently plugged into my interface, so at any point I can just plug a patch cable directly into here, and boom, 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 we're off to the races. On top of having a Kemper and a bunch of guitars to choose from, I like to keep a handful of guitar pedals on me at all times as they fall on the floor. Yeah, you can never have too many toys. And lastly, let's talk about, ooh, this is really uncomfortable. I'm gonna turn on these lights here. They are a different temperature than mine. Okay, here we go, vlogging. Let's talk about acoustic treatment. So I've created these panels here with my roommate Joey, and that one's just kind of, that's not a permanent home for it. But we've built these panels, attached them to the wall. They're all temporary. You can rip them off whenever you want. But they do the trick. It definitely significantly changes the way the room sounds. This room is not a great sounding room by itself, but it's definitely treated. There's a lot less reflections, and you're able to mix in here, which is what's important. So yeah, that's it. Cool, so we are now back here. Hopefully I did an adequate job of showing you what I do and where I spend the majority of my life. I went over my Hackintosh, my monitors, and my interface, which I think are like the three major elements. And then a couple other of my fun toys, my guitars, and everything like that. It really isn't anything serious, but in this day and age, it's so easy to get a professional setup going, and I'm not lying when I say I do all of my mixing here in this basement, believe it or not, and I'm able to make a living doing that, and that's pretty freaking cool. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. I might post more. Hopefully I do. This was fun. So have a good day.